I'm Arvin Enriquez, your subject teacher in General Mathematics. With this video lesson, we're going to discuss intercepts, zeros, and asymptotes of rational functions under your General Mathematics from Quarter 1, Module 9. Our lesson objectives. At the end of this video lesson, you are expected to first, recall the meaning of intercepts, zeros, and asymptotes. Second, identify the intercepts, zeros, and asymptotes of rational functions. And last, solve for the intercepts, zeros, and asymptotes of rational functions. So let's talk about now the intercepts and zeros of irrational functions. So by simply using these illustrations here that represent your x and y intercepts, no, we use the application GeoGebra, but actually we can use also the application Desmos for us to graph a certain rational function. Now, let us define what is intercepts of a graph of irrational function. So these intercepts represent the point of intersection or point of intersections between your graph and your axis. So here there is a y-intercept and here there is an x-intercept. Y-intercept is your point of intersection between your graph and y-axis, while the x-intercept it represents the point of intersection between your graph of a rational function and the x-axis. So, in a simple world, no, that your y-intercept of the graph of a rational function r of x, no, we simply use r of x to represent your function if it exists, occurs at r is equal to 0, or r of 0, I mean. So provided that r of x is defined at x is equal to 0. So if there is a given rational function and we're asked to find the value of y-intercept, we just simply put a value of x variable or domain which is equal to 0 for us to find the value of y. Again, if you're asked to find the value of your y-intercept, you're going to assume or you're going to put 0 as a replacement of all your x variable in the given function. Now, in this x-intercept of the graph of a rational function r of x, if it exists, occurs at zeros of the numerator that are not zeros of the denominators. So to put x-intercept, equate the function to 0. In a simple word, no, we just simply put a value of f of x which is equal to 0. If there is a given rational function and we replace f of x by simply using your y variable, then we assume, no, if we're asked to find the value of x-intercept, we just substitute 0 as a value of your y or f of x for us to find the value of this x-intercept. Now, for the zeros of a functions, these are values of x which make the function 0. Meaning to say, in a simple word, no, the numbered zeros are also your x-intercepts of the graph of the function. if we define zeros of a function are the values of x which make the function zero, then we can say that your x-intercept is actually your zeros of a function. Why? Because if we use y to replace f of x and we make this y equal to 0, then we can find x-intercept. And by simply applying the definition of zeros of a function, these are values of x which make the function 0. So from the value of x that we get, that we can get from in finding or in looking for the x-intercept of a rational function, we're going to assume that your y is equal to 0. Meaning to say, these are values that will make the function 0. In a simple word again, zeros of a function is automatically your x-intercept. Now, using this graph in your figure number 1, so here again, this will be your curve that will represent your rational function. Again, all point of intersections between the curve that will represent your rational function and your x and y axis will serve as your intercepts. But y-intercepts or intercepts represent the point of or points of intersection between your y-axis and your curve, and the x-intercept will represent the point of intersection between your curve and your x-axis. And simply by applying again the definition of zeros of a function, it is simply your x-intercept. So for us to visualize more what will be the value of your x and y intercepts, the zeros of the given rational functions, let's deal with these examples. So for number 1, we're asked to find the value of your x and y intercepts of the following rational functions. So here there's an f of x which is equal to 3x over x plus 1. Your b here is f of x is equal to 3x over x plus 3. And your c here is f of x is equal to x squared minus 3x plus 2 over x squared minus 4. So these three given rational functions, we satisfy that both your numerator and denominators, are both polynomial. For polynomials, I mean. And for number 2, determine the zeros of the following rational functions. So it's a different story from number 1. So in number 2, we're asked to determine the zeros of the given rational functions. For your letter A, your g of x is equal to x minus 2 over x plus 6. And for B, h of x is equal to x minus 3 over x squared minus 9. And for your C, your g of x is equal to x squared plus x minus 2 over x squared minus 4. So if you try to observe, any letter can represent your function. It can be g of x, h of x, or f of x. It depends on you. It's fine as long that you know that this letter represents a function. So for the solutions, so to find x-intercept, equate the function to 0. We all know that f of x can be equal to y, or we simply use letter y to replace your f of x that will represent your function. In this case, we're going to make this, or we're going to equate this function equal to 0. That's why in this case, if the given is f of x is equal to 3x minus x, 3 minus x, over x plus 1, change f of x to 0. So we just simply change our f of x, or we replace f of x by simply using 0. And then that will be the resulting value here. And we copy your 3 minus x over x plus 1. So by applying MPE, your MPE stands for the multiplication property of equality. Once we apply the concept of MPE, we just simply cross-multiply this one to 0. So 3 minus x over x plus 1 is equal to 0 now. And we just simply multiply x plus 1 to 0 by simply applying your multiplication property of equality. So it's a cross multiplication between your x plus 1 and 0. Now, solve for x by applying your APE. APE is the addition property of equality. In this step, we're just solving for the value of x. So since here, 3 minus x, so it's a negative value of x. So by simply, if we transpose this negative x to another side of your equation, or we transfer this negative x to another side of your equation, we just simply change the sign of this negative x from negative to a positive x. Now, the value now is x is equal to positive 3. So the x-intercept, since x is equal to 3, so the x-intercept is 3 and 0. Always remember that if you're asked to find the value of x-intercept, your y-coordinate here of a point will always be equal to 0 if you're asked to find the value of x-intercept. There is no such thing as a value of y-coordinate greater than 0 or less than 0 if you're dealing with x-intercept. It must be equal to 0 all the time. So by analyzing the example, we can say that to find the x-intercept, we simply equate the numerator of the function to 0. Because if we assume that your y is equal to 0, then we apply your MPE, the multiplication property of equality, then your denominator will be multiplied to 0. And it makes the another side of your equation equal to 0. In a simple word, or in a very simple uh, way, no, we just simply assume, or we just simply equate your numerator equal to 0 for us to find the value of your x-intercept. Now, to find the value of your y-intercept, change the x value of the function to 0. So it's a totally opposite of your x-intercept. If in your x-intercept, we assume that your y is equal to 0, in this y-intercept, we assume that your x value now is equal to 0. So there's the same function, f of x is equal to 3 minus x over x plus 1. So substitute 0 to x values of the function. So we just simply replace all your x variables in your given function by simply using your 0 as a value of your x variable. That's why it becomes 3 minus 0 over 0 plus 1. So simplifying the fraction. So 3 minus 0, it's 3. So 0 plus 1, it's 1. So if we divide 3 by 1, it's equal to 3. So the value of f(x) or y, because we simply we simply use y to replace your f of x here. That will represent your function. So the y-intercept is 3 or 0 and 3. Again, if you're asked to find the value of your y-intercept, unlike in your x-intercept, Now, in your y-intercept, your x value or your x coordinate in a point that will represent your y-intercept, your x coordinate must be equal to 0 all the time. There is no other values that you can put on it if you're dealing with y-intercept. When you're dealing with y-intercept, it's automatic that your x coordinate of a given point that will represent your y-intercept is always equal to 0. It must be equal to 0 all the time. So for letter B, f of x is equal to 3x over x plus 3. Again, to find the x-intercept, we simply equate the numerator to 0. So your numerator here, no, we can simply multiply. It's a multiply. So we multiply the equation by 1/3 of your MPE, or the multiplication property of equality. But in a simple thought, no, we just simply equate your numerator. So your numerator here is 3x. So if we equate this one to 0, this will be your resulting equation. So 0 is equal to 3x. Now, if we multiply the entire equation by 1/3 by simply applying the multiplication property of equality, then we can simplify the fraction. So 0 over 3, because we multiply 0 by 1/3, so that's why it's 0 over 3 is equal to 3x over 3. Then 3 will be cancelled out because 3 over 3 it's 1. Now, the value of x, or the x-intercept, is equal to 0. Then, the coordinate, no? The coordinate of a point that will represent your x-intercept, it's 0 and 0. So it's a coincidence, no? There are times that your uh, x-intercept will represent by simply 0, 0, or it falls in your origin. But if you're asked again with the value of your x-intercept, we always assume, or we conclude, no, that the y-coordinate in your x-intercept is always equal to 0. But in this case, your x-coordinate also equal to 0. Now let's find the y-intercept of this graph of a rational function. So to find the y-intercept, change the x value of the function to 0. So again, we replace f of x, no, by simply using your y. Then we substitute 0 as the value of your x variable in the given function. So it becomes 3 multiplied by 0 over 0 plus 3. Then if we simplify this one, so it becomes 0 over 3, or simply your f of x is equal to 0, or your y now is equal to 0. And the y-intercept is 0, or 0, 0. So in finding the value of your y-intercept, your x here must be always equal to 0 all the time. But in this case, no, it's a coincidence, no, that with this given, your y is equal to 0. But most of the time, there is a value of y coordinate here that will represent your y-intercept. Now, in this case, no, with the given rational function which is equal to 3x over x plus 3, both your x-intercept and y-intercept falls, no, on your origin. So the point of intersection between your x-axis and your y-axis and your graph falls at the origin, meaning to say that your graph uh, will pass through at the center of your Cartesian plane, or at the origin, or at 0, 0 mark. So for letter C, f of x is equal to x squared minus 3x plus 2, over x squared minus 4. So first thing to do, if we're asked to find the value of your x-intercept, we're going to equate the numerator to 0. And it becomes x squared minus 3x plus 2 is equal to 0 from your numerator. Though we apply the zero product property, so first we get the factor of this quadratic formula here, or quadratic equation here. That's why it's x minus 2 and x minus 1. Negative 2 and negative 1 is a factor of positive 2, because if we multiply your negative 2 by negative 1, it's positive 2, and once we add negative 2 and negative 1, it provides you a value that is equal to your negative 3. Therefore, these two factors are correct. No? In checking if your factor, or if the value that you put as a factor of your quadratic equation, you need to check if these two values can provide you the same value of your middle term from your quadratic equation. Now, solve for x. If we're asked to solve for x, we just simply equate this x minus 2 to 0. And your resulting value is x is equal to positive 2. Because if we transpose this negative 2 to another side of your equation from negative to positive, so it makes your value of x equal to positive 2. In a second factor, which is x minus 1, then we are going to equate again this factor to 0. That will be equal to x minus 1 equal to 0. Then if we transpose this negative 1 to another side of your equation from negative to positive, then your x now is equal to positive 1. So the x-intercepts are x is equal to 2 and your x is equal to 1. So by looking at the denominator of the original function, if we substitute 2 to the value of x, then it can provide you a denominator equal to 0. So your denominator here, if we put a value of x which is equal to 0, then your denominator is now equal to 0. So we cannot consider, or even if we get two values of x here, 2 and positive, both positive 2 and positive 1, but again, we really need to check if these values will make your denominator equal to 0. So in a rational function, we should check first if a value of x can make your denominator equal to 0. Because if that is the case, we're going to exclude this value that will provide you a denominator which is equal to 0 for all the possible values that we can put as a variable of your domain or your x variable in the given rational function. That's why here, if x is equal to 2, it provides you a value of denominator which is equal to 0, then we cannot consider this positive 2 as a value for x. But we can actually use x is equal to positive 1 as a value of x, because if we put 1 as a value for x in your denominator, so that will be equal to negative 3. So there is a given value of your denominator if we put 1 as a value of your x variable. Therefore, between positive 2 and positive 1, we neglect positive 1, we neglect positive 2, and then we adopt positive 1. So the denominator will become 0. That's why we neglect positive 2. So we neglect positive 2. So the function becomes meaningless. So we will only accept x-intercept at x is equal to 1 or 1 is equal to 0. Because between positive 2 and positive 1, positive 1 can give you a value of denominator that is not equal to 0. So it can be less than 0 or more than 0. As long that it is not equal to 0, then it's fine. So we can actually consider that value as a value of x-intercept. So to find the y-intercept, so change the x value of the function to 0. No? Again, if you're asked to find the value of your y-intercept, we always assume that your x variables in your given function are equal to 0. So in a simple, if we apply this concept, no, it makes your function equal to 0 squared minus 3 multiplied by 0 plus 2 all over 0 squared minus 4. So simplifying, so the remaining value for your numerator is 2, positive 2, and for the remaining value for your denominator is negative 4. So since 2 and 4 are divisible by 2, so we can get the lowest term of these, no? Then it can be, our final answer is negative 1 half, no? Because positive, if we divide positive by a negative number, or positive 2 divided by a negative 4, it's negative 1 half. So we just simply look for the value of lowest term, then we apply the necessary sign for this function. Now, the y-intercept now is equal to negative 1 half. Again, no, when you're asked to find the value of your y-intercept, we always conclude that your x-coordinate is equal to 0. And here, there is a given value of y-coordinate. But again, in your y-intercept, your x-coordinate in a given point that will represent your y-intercept, your x-coordinate is always equal to 0. For number 2, we're asked to determine the zeros of the following rational functions. Here, there's a given g of x for letter B, A, and h of x for letter B, and g of x for letter C. So to find the zeros of the rational function, equate the function to 0 or solve for the x-intercept of the function by equating the numerator to 0. So it's the same process, no? It's the same process on how we solve for the value of your x-intercept. Because we define your zeros of a function, it's the same thing with your x-intercept. That's why if that is the process for x-intercept, it's the same thing on how we get the zeros of the given rational function. Now, for letter A, g of x is equal to x minus 2 over x plus 6. So equate the numerator to 0. So that will be the first step. So your numerator here is x minus 2. So we're going to equate this numerator to 0, and it becomes x minus 2 is equal to 0. So after equating your numerator to 0, we're asked to solve for the value of x. So we just simply transfer this negative 2 or transpose this negative 2 to another side of your equations from negative to positive, no? Then your x now is equal to positive 2. Thus, the zero of g of x is 2. So whatever, again, whatever the value of your x-intercept, that is also the value of your zero of irrational functions. Again, no? Whatever your steps, whatever the process that you're done dealing with your x-intercept, it's the same thing, no? With the zeros of the rational function. So it's the same process. Or we can just simply say, no, that the value of your x-intercept is actually the value of your zeros of irrational function. So for letter B, h of x is equal to x minus 3 over x squared minus 9. Now, simplified by factoring the denominator. So here we can simplify, no? Because your x squared minus 9 is equal to your x plus 3 multiplied by x minus 3. if we apply the concept of your algebra, no, from the special product or in a binomial theorem on how we factor a quadratic equation, no, that's how we get the factor of these. Your x squared minus 9 is equal to x plus 3 multiplied by x minus 3. So if we simplify this one, no, then we can cancel out your x minus 3, x minus 3. That's why it becomes 1. So your numerator now becomes 1 here, and then we equate this numerator to 0. So here, 1 is equal to 0 is a false statement. Definitely, no? Definitely, it's a false statement. Why? Because 1 is greater than 0 in reality and not equal to 0. Therefore, in this case, no, there is no 0 of the function. So, in this example, as you can see, no, you just simply simplify first the denominator, then look for the simplified form of this function before you came up, no, with the idea that you're going to equate your numerator to 0. First thing to do is to simplify first, no? Simplify first your given rational function, then move forward with the process of equating your numerator to 0 for us to find the value of zeros. And it's the same thing on how we find the value of your x-intercept. So in this case, no, it provides you 1 is equal to 0. If this is a false statement in reality, then there is no 0 in the function. Meaning to say, there is no x-intercept, no, on this given rational function. There are cases wherein if there's a given rational functions, once we use your GeoGebra or Desmos as the application, no, for us to graph this rational function, there are situations wherein there is no value of there is no 0, meaning to say that there is no x-intercept. Or there is no point of intersection between your x-axis and your curve that will represent your rational function. That's why here, since it provides you 1 is equal to 0, it's a false statement, definitely, no? There is no 0 for this given function. So for letter C, your g of x is equal to x squared plus x minus 2 over x squared minus 4. Here, you don't need to go first, no, in equating your numerator to 0. If there are chances, no, that we can simplify, no, this given rational function. If we can simplify this given rational function, then go with the simplification by simply applying the factoring method for us to simplify first your numerator and denominator. So after simplifying your numerator and denominator, then we can move forward, no, in equating your numerator to 0. So in this case, no, we can actually look for the factor of your numerator, which is x squared plus x minus 2, and it becomes x plus 2 or multiplied by x minus 1. The same thing with your denominator. We can factor this one by simply using x plus 2 multiplied by x minus 2. Now, as you can see, no, both in your numerator and denominator, there is an x plus 2 and x plus 2 in your denominator. So we can cancel out your x plus 2 in both your numerator and denominator. So the remaining term for your numerator and denominator is x plus minus 1 over x minus 2. Now, if we are in, no, to the simplified form of this rational function, we can go now with the process of equating the numerator to 0. That's why it becomes x minus 1 is equal to 0, because your numerator here is x minus 1. So we're going to equate the numerator to 0, then solve for the value of x. Then if this is negative 1, if we transpose this one to another side of your equation, let's make sure x equal to positive 1. That's why x is equal to positive 1 here. Thus, the 0 of g of x is equal to positive 1. Or simply, this will be the value of your x-intercept. It can be 1 and 0, no? And by simply applying the 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 meaning of the formal meaning of a zeros of a function and x-intercept, they are actually the same values, no? Your 0 of your g of x will be equal to the x-intercept of your g of x. Now, let's move forward with your asymptotes. So when we say asymptotes, is an imaginary line to which a graph gets closer and closer as x and y increases or decreases its value without limit. Meaning to say, up to the last part of your curve, no, there is an asymptotes, whether your x or your y increases or decreases. And this asymptotes is an imaginary line that will serve only as a guide of your curve, meaning to say that there is no point of intersections or intersection between your curve and your asymptotes. Again, when we say asymptote, it is an imaginary line, no, that gets closer and closer to your graph when your x or your y increases or decreases its value without limit. Because at some point, no, your asymptote is parallel to your curve, and that's make an idea that there is no point of intersection or intersections between your asymptotes and your curve that will represent your rational function. That's why if we define asymptotes, it is an imaginary line that will serve as a guide for your curve, but there is no such thing as point of intersection between your curve and your asymptotes. So there are three kinds of asymptotes here. So first is your vertical asymptote. Second is your horizontal asymptote. Third is your oblique or your slant asymptote. So for your vertical asymptote, the vertical line x is equal to a is a vertical asymptote of, of a function f if the graph increases or decreases without bound at the x values, approaches, or from the right or left. Meaning to say, no, it's a vertical line wherein your x now, there is a value of x here, no? So it's a straight line, it's a vertical line, no? When as when your x increases, no? When your x increases, we all know that if this is your Cartesian plane, if x increases, your value will start from 0 going to the right side of your x-axis. So when your x increases, it's automatically no that your graph will also increase no from your y-axis. But there is no point of intersection between your vertical asymptotes and your curve. So that's how we define your vertical asymptote here. So let's try to use this illustration of a vertical asymptote using your GeoGebra, or we can use actually your Desmos, no, in graphing your rational function. So as you can see here in this illustration, this will be your vertical asymptote. At some point here, no, or at some portion here, no, your vertical asymptote is parallel to your curve. That's why I said before that your asymptotes no is an imaginary line and there is no point of intersection or intersections between your asymptotes and your curve that will represent your rational functions. So by looking at the illustration, we can see that the graph of the function is approaching at x is equal to -5. So this will be equal to x is equal to negative 5, represented by the dotted line, and as we can see, the graph is getting closer and closer to x is equal to negative 5. But it will not pass or intersect the line. That's why we define your asymptote as a guide, no? Only a guide for your curve, but there is no point of intersection, or your curve will never pass through, no, to your asymptote. So the vertical asymptote of the graph is at x is equal to negative 5. We can find vertical asymptote even without looking at the graph of the function. Because by simply looking at this one, no, we can actually look for the value or the equation of a line that will represent your vertical asymptote. Because as you can see here, even your curve, no, even your curve gets closer and closer to negative pi, it will never pass through, or it will never have intersect, no, or point of intersection between your curve and your vertical asymptote. That's why we can predict, or we can conclude, that x is equal to negative 5. That will be the equation that will represent your vertical asymptote by simply looking at the graph and without solving for the values of your vertical asymptote. So in finding vertical asymptote, so to determine the vertical asymptote of a rational function, first reduce the given function to simplest form, then find the zeros of the denominator that are not zeros of the numerator. So for example, let's determine the vertical asymptotes of each of the rational functions given here. So your f of x is equal to x minus 1 over x plus 5. Here, your f of x is equal to x plus 2 over x plus 1 multiplied by x minus 4. And for letter C, your g of x is equal to 2x squared minus x plus 1 over x squared minus 6x plus 9. So for letter A, no, so in finding the vertical asymptotes, or the value or the equation that will represent the vertical asymptote of the given graph, first thing to do, no, so the zero of the numerator is 1, and the zero of the denominator is negative 5. Because if we put positive 1 here in your letter A, no, in your numerator as a value of your x, 1 minus 1 is 0. So if we put negative 5 in your x in your denominator, it makes your denominator equal to 0. So the vertical asymptote for f of x is equal to x minus 1 over x plus 5 is x is equal to negative 5. So the value is 0 of the denominator but not of the numerator. So the value of your vertical asymptote is the value that makes your denominator equal to 0 and not your numerator. Always look for the value of your x variable that will make your denominator equal to 0 and not your numerator. And that value of x will serve as your vertical asymptotes. So for letter B, so the zero of the numerator negative 2 and the zeros of the denominator are negative 1 and 4. Why it happened? Because if we put this negative 2 to this given function, it makes your numerator equal to 0. Then once we put this negative 1 and negative 4 to your denominator here, it makes your denominator equal to 0. What we need to check is to look for the value of x that make your denominator equal to 0, but not the same thing as your numerator. Meaning to say, if we put this value, it makes your denominator equal to 0, but there's a value of your numerator. So it can be x is equal to negative 1 and x is equal to positive 4. So these values are zeros of denominator, but not of the numerator. So it's a numerator here, no? It's a typographical error, so it's a numerator here. So It's a numerator, not a denominator. So these values are zeros of the denominator, but not of the numerator. Because this value makes your denominator equal to 0, but not your numerator. So it's a numerator here. Numerator. Then for letter C, since the function is in quadratic form, reduce it to simplest form. So before moving forward, by simply looking for the values of your numerator that makes your numerator and denominator equal to 0, then we need to simplify first, and to reduce the given function to the simplest form. So the simplest form of g of x, 2x squared minus x minus 1 over x squared minus 5x plus 6 is g of x is equal to 2x plus 1 multiplied by x minus 1 over x minus 3 multiplied by x minus 2. So this will be the factor of your numerator, and this will be the factor of your denominator. So the zeros of the numerator are negative 1/2 and positive 1. So the zeros of the denominator are 3 and negative 2. So if we try to compare, so since here, if we compare your values from the zeros of your numerator and denominators, so it's negative 1/2 and 1, and 3 and 2 to your denominator. So they are not the same. So therefore, the vertical asymptote for g of x are now equal to x is equal to 2 and x is equal to 3. Because this value will make your denominator equal to 0, but there is a given value for your numerator. So these values are 0 of denominator, but not of denominator. So it's a typographical error again. So it's a numerator. So meaning to say, in finding your vertical asymptotes, first thing to do is to simplify. Look for the simplest form of the given function, if that is in a form of quadratic, Then look for the value of denominator that will make, look for the value of x that will make your denominator equal to 0, and there's a value of your numerator. So if that is the case, we can consider these values as a value of your vertical asymptote. So now let's move forward with your horizontal asymptote. So the horizontal line is equal to y is equal to b, wherein it came from the concept of your slope-intercept form. Y is equal to mx plus b. Your b here is your y-intercept. That's why the horizontal line y is equal to b is our horizontal asymptote, because your y-intercept will represent your horizontal asymptote of the function f if f of x gets closer to b as x increases or decreases without bound. The same thing with your horizontal asymptote. So this horizontal line, will serve as your horizontal asymptote, your imaginary line here. And at some point here, it makes your horizontal asymptote parallel to your curve. So meaning to say, even if you're dealing with the horizontal asymptote, there is no point of intersection between your curve and your horizontal asymptote. That's why we define your asymptote as an imaginary line, and it will serve only as a guide for your curve. But there is no such thing as point of intersection between your curve and your horizontal line. So looking at the graph on the illustration, we can see that the graph of the function is approaching a line in the y-axis. The line is called the horizontal asymptote. So in the graph, we can see that it is getting closer and closer to y is equal to 1. But it only approached, but never touch or intersect y is equal to positive 1. So the horizontal asymptote of the function is at y is equal to 1. So without solving on it, by simply looking at the Cartesian plane in your curve, you can actually determine what will be the equation of this horizontal line that will represent your horizontal asymptote. Now again, by simply looking, we can identify that this is y is equal to positive 1. So therefore, this will be your equation that will represent your horizontal asymptote. So we can determine horizontal asymptote arithmetically by comparing the degree of the leading coefficient of the numerator and denominator of the function. So in finding the horizontal asymptote of a rational function, to determine the horizontal asymptote of a rational function, compare the degree of the numerator n and the degree of the denominator d. So if n is less than d, or the degree of numerator is less than the degree of denominator, the horizontal asymptote is y is equal to 0. So this will serve as your x-axis. If your y is equal to 0, then your horizontal asymptote is actually your x-axis. So if n is equal to d, the horizontal asymptote's y is the ratio of the leading coefficient of the numerator a to the leading coefficient of the denominator b, that is y is equal to a is equal to b. So there are conditions here, no, that is being given for us to be guided. No. For letter C, if n is greater than d, there is no horizontal asymptotes. So we note a rational function may or may not cross its horizontal asymptote. If the function does not cross the horizontal asymptote y is equal to b, then b is not part of the range of the rational function. So you need, if that happened, no, you need to exclude this value of b as a part of the range or y values that we can put on this rational function. So for examples, so determine the horizontal asymptote of each rational function. Here there is an f of x is equal to 3x plus 8 over x squared plus 1. For letter B, your f of x is equal to 3 plus 8x squared over x squared plus 1. And for letter C, your g of x is equal to 8x cubed minus 1 over 1 minus x squared. So that will be your third rational function here. So the degree of the numerator for the solutions now for letter A, so the degree of the numerator 3x plus 8 is less than the degree of the denominator x squared. Yes, it is, no, because the degree here is 1 and the degree here for your denominator is 2. So therefore, the horizontal asymptote is equal to y is equal to 0. Or in a simple word, no, your x-axis will serve as your horizontal asymptote of the curve. For letter B, the degree of the numerator 3 plus x to 8x squared and that of the denominator x squared are equal, because as you can see, the degree of, or the exponent, no, of the leading term in this given rational function are both equal to 2, or they are quadratic in a quadratic form. So therefore, the horizontal asymptote of y is equal to the ratio of the leading coefficient of the numerator 8 to the leading coefficient of the denominator 1. Your y now is equal to 8 over 1 is equal to b. So your leading coefficient here is 8. Your leading coefficient here is 1, because in reality there is a numerical coefficient here which is equal to 1. That's why it's 8 over 1, because we take the ratio, no, between the leading coefficient of your numerator and your denominator, then for us to find the value of your horizontal, the equation that will represent your horizontal asymptote. So for letter C, your degree here in your numerator is 3 and the degree in your denominator is 2. Meaning to say the degree of your numerator is less than the degree of your I mean, your n here, the degree of your numerator is greater than, no? Is greater than to the degree of your denominator. Your n is greater than d since 3 now. 3 is greater than 2 in reality. So therefore, no, there is no horizontal asymptote. So if that's happened, no, if n or the degree in your numerator is greater than to the degree of your denominator, then there is no horizontal asymptote with this given rational function. So aside from the vertical and horizontal asymptote, so a rational function can have another asymptote called the oblique or slant. It occurs when there is no horizontal asymptote or when the degree of the numerator is greater than the degree of the denominator. So if your n is greater than d, then there is an oblique or slant asymptote. So you need to take note of that. No, when the degree of your numerator is greater than to the degree of the denominator, or your n is greater than d, then there is an oblique or slant asymptote uh, in your rational function. So the slant or oblique asymptotes. So an oblique asymptote is a line that is neither vertical nor horizontal, but not actually as vertical or horizontal, no? Not totally as vertical or horizontal. So it occurs when the numerator of f(x) has the degree that is 1 higher than the degree of the denominator. So if n is greater than d, then there is an oblique or slant asymptote in your rational functions. So as you can see in this graph, no, there is a oblique asymptote here. This will be your oblique asymptote. This hidden line, no, this will serve as your oblique or slant asymptote. So looking at the graph, we can see that there is a vertical asymptote and there is no horizontal asymptote. So if that is the case, though, if there is a, even if no, there is a vertical asymptote and there is no horizontal asymptote, we're looking for the scenario that there is no horizontal asymptote before we conclude that there is an slant and oblique asymptote. If there is a horizontal asymptote, there is no slant or oblique asymptote. You need to take note of that. No, even if there is a vertical asymptote, as long that there is no horizontal asymptote, then there is an slant or oblique asymptote. If there is a horizontal asymptote, there is no oblique or slant asymptote. So in this case, oblique or slant asymptote occurs because there is no horizontal asymptote. We can determine the oblique slant asymptote using your knowledge of division of polynomials. So we just simply apply, no, the division of polynomials, no. So what will be your polynomial? So it can be linear, quadratic, cubic, and constant, no. So the illustration of the oblique asymptotes using your GeoGebra as shown here in your illustration here, no. So the slant imaginary line will serve as your slant oblique asymptote. Since there is no horizontal asymptote in this graph, then there is automatically, no, there is a slant and oblique asymptote for this rational. So finding the oblique or slant asymptote. So to find the slant asymptote, simply divide the numerator by the denominator by either using the long division or synthetic division. So the oblique asymptote is the quotient with the remainder ignored and set equal to y. So we just simply ignore the remainder, no. So if there's a remainder, or we cannot get, or we can the quotient, no, the resulting value for the quotient of your polynomials, no, then we're going to ignore your remainder. First, consider that f of x, the function h of x, is equal to x squared plus 3 over x minus 1. Determine the asymptotes. So by looking at the function, h of x is undefined at x is equal to 1. So the vertical asymptote of h of x is the line at x is equal to 1. So that's how we look for this scenario. So there is no horizontal asymptotes, therefore, no? Or in a simple word, since 2 is your numerical degree in in your numerator, which is greater than, no, with the degree in your denominator which is equal to 1, then we can conclude that there is no horizontal asymptote. Then, if there is no horizontal asymptote, there is an oblique and slant asymptote. Now, if the numerator and denominator of h of x are divided, we get that h of x is equal to x squared plus 3 minus x. So we just simply divide this one, no? So we assume that there's a middle term here that is equal to 0. For once we apply your synthetic division or long method division, no, we just simply assume that there is a middle term, no, between your x squared and positive 3. That's why we put 0x here. But there is no value of 0x here, no. We just simply put that value for us to be guided. Then we apply the long method. So right after we apply your long method of division, so the resulting value is x plus 1 plus 4 over x minus 1. So thus the line y is equal to x minus 1 is the oblique asymptote of x is equal to x squared plus 3 over x minus 1. Because we're going to neglect this part because this part is your remainder. So a while ago we said that we're going to ignore, no, your remainder, then we just simply adopt this portion x plus 1. So y now is equal to x plus 1. So this will be the the equation of a line that will represent your slant or oblique asymptote. Now, if this is a positive value, when your m is a positive value or a positive number, then your line rises from left to right. When your m or your slope is a negative value, then your line falls from left to right. So that's how we assess, no? That's how we graph your given line if there is a given equation of a line. So for activity 1, so determine the vertical and horizontal asymptotes of the following rational functions here. So the vertical asymptotes, you're asked to find the value of the vertical asymptotes and the horizontal asymptotes of the given rational functions from 1 to 5. Thanks for watching. So please like and comment and share and subscribe.